This week, I'm going to tell you all about the Fresno State lineup and if they're going to dominate in this next season. Plus, what happened to half of Cornell's wrestlers? I'm going to get into that, and I'm going to tell you all about the 7 redshirt freshmen that you need to watch in the 2019-2020 season. So let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's up, wrestling fans? My name is Josiah, and welcome to the Fanco Wrestling Show. On this channel, we talk all about wrestling news, tips, and lifestyle. So if you're a fan of that and this is your first time here, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Now, we have a lot to talk about today, but the first thing I wanted to mention is thanks to those of you who joined the live stream last week. As a channel, we just passed 1 million views, which is absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to keep pushing forward with all of you wrestling fans and making this incredible content together. Now, the other thing I wanted to tell you is that Fanco Wrestling now has an Instagram page. So if you're on Instagram, if you're on social media, make sure that you go check that out. There's a direct link in the description below, or you can just type in Fanco Wrestling on Instagram. So without further ado, let's get into today's topics. And first of all, in the world of wrestling this week, the first thing that we want to talk about is the Dake versus Dieringer match. You know, I mentioned a little bit about this on the live stream, talked a little bit about this, but Dake beat Dieringer in 2 matches. He is now officially on Team USA. To be honest with you, it was kind of a little bit of an uneventful series. Dake just won. He kind of won big, but not really in any exciting way. He stuck it to Dieringer, and it was upsetting to see if you're a Dieringer fan, of course. But that is what happened. The other thing, of course, this weekend coming up. Not only is it my birthday, but it is also the Zane versus Yanni second and possibly third match. This is happening, of course, on Monday, September 2nd in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Will you be in attendance? Now, I've already talked in length about this in another video on the channel, but I will give my prediction. I think Yanni's going to get that second match, and I think that Zane's actually going to end up pulling it off and getting in that third match. Am I wrong? What do you think? What are your predictions? Can Yanni now pull back and make Team USA? The other things going on in the world of wrestling, Joey McKenna will be joining the Pennsylvania RTC. So this is, of course, after graduating from Ohio State. Before that, he was at Stanford University, and now he's continuing his education at the Wharton School of Business. He's looking to keep training there and, of course, make an Olympic team next year in 2020. So that's what he'll be doing. The other thing, before we get into our main topics of the day, is that Iowa Wrestling actually lost 2 major recruits this week. This is reported by Flow Wrestling. 2 other major recruits that they lost are Ryan Sokol, who's entering his junior year in high school. He's actually looking at Ohio State now, where one of his teammates in Greg Kirkfleet, who just committed there, he's going there this year, heavyweight. Ryan Sokol is looking there. He just left, decommitted from Iowa. And then Jason Rentieri, who's actually at Iowa, not necessarily a recruit, but he was at Nebraska before and ended up going to Iowa, and now he's gone and reopened his recommitment, looking for other schools. The other thing that's going on in the world of wrestling is Cade Brock. Cade Brock actually has a torn ACL. This is reported by Intermat. Cade Brock from Oklahoma State, unfortunately, 2-time All-American, a lightweight. Now he's just got surgery, and it's looking unlikely that he's going to wrestle this season. So he's probably looking for that medical redshirt year. And without further ado, let's dive into today's main topics of the day. So a big question that I get, one thing that we talk about a lot on this channel is USA wrestling, freestyle wrestling, as well as, folk style, college, high school news. But one of the questions that I have received multiple times is, what are RTCs? You may hear that word, that phrase, that abbreviation a bunch: RTCs, RTCs, RTCs. Well, for those of you who are new to freestyle wrestling, who are new to even college wrestling, you may not know what an RTC is. An RTC stands for Regional Training Center. At the very minimum, you have to understand that it's a regional training center, and basically these are training centers that are found around the country that are to train wrestlers in freestyle wrestling, freestyle Greco, pretty much international wrestling. Now, one thing that comes directly from the teamusa.org is teamusa.org says the purpose of the RTS, or regional training site or center, interchangeable. The purpose of the RTS system is to provide young wrestlers available locations to actively train in the sport of wrestling year-round. Very often, wrestlers have the desire to deepen their commitment to attain higher goals. However, many wrestlers cannot find an active club or quality workout partners. The RTS system aims to help these aspiring wrestlers. So that's directly from Team USA. That's what it's all about. You may know, I'll get to some major name RTCs that you may have heard of, but how do you qualify to wrestle in one? How can you wrestle in one? Well, there are a couple of different things that go into these RTCs. There are actually a lot that goes into them as far as rules and keeping up with how they all work. So these RTCs are chartered clubs with USA Wrestling. So these wrestlers and coaches have the aspirations of making wrestlers get onto Team USA, represent the USA on a world level at international competition. That's what Final X is all about this year. Of course, next year, that's what the Olympic trials will be all about. Wrestlers training at these RTCs. Typically, they're located on college campuses or around college campuses because that's where you can get the guys in the room that are off season. They can practice freestyle out of the season, and then guys, can live close to the college campus. It's pretty nice. Now, you must have use of a facility, a wrestling facility year-round for an RTC to actually be considered that, and you must have 4 established national team contenders on site. Now, the other thing is it's international practice, wrestling practices only, so as I mentioned, freestyle and Greco. And in order to actually wrestle these, what are the qualifications? Well, typically you have to place high at a national tournament. Actually, if you're from high school, you can place in high in your state and actually be considered, or can actually wrestle at one of these, as well as after that, it's national tournaments, it's international tournaments. So talking a little bit about winning a match at the World or Olympic team event or team trials, placing top 8 in the US Open or other national tournaments, or top 4 in the high school state tournament, preps, cadet, and junior championships. That's kind of what the RTCs are all about. Now, what are some well-known RTCs? They're actually RTCs in almost half of the states. I believe it's around 24, 25. There are RTCs located in them. Of course, there can be multiple RTCs within one state. A couple of the big names: Ohio Regional Training Center in Columbus. You have the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club in Pennsylvania, Sunkiss Kids in Arizona, Finger Lakes Wrestling Club in Ithaca, New York with Cornell. You got the Cowboy RTC in Stillwater. You have the Jackrabbit Wrestling Club in South Dakota. And the list goes on and on and on. But generally, those are what RTCs are. And hopefully, you have a better understanding of that now. And if you're looking for other Team USA wrestling news, make sure you check out the other videos on the channel so you can learn all about USA wrestling. Now we're going to get into some college wrestling news. One thing that I'm very excited to tell you all about is 7 incoming redshirt freshmen for the upcoming season. So 7 redshirt freshmen this upcoming season who you need to know because they're going to make a major impact. So first I'm going to get into some honorable mentions and then get into who my personal top 7 guys to watch is. And I will say they're not all just guys in the Big 10. They're not all just guys in the Big 12. They're all over. These are guys that you need to watch. They'll make an impact at the national championships and throughout the season at other tournaments. First of all, let's start off with some honorable mentions. The first guy I want to say is Brayton Lee, who's a 149-pounder at Minnesota. He was 26-7 in his redshirt season. He lost to a few guys actually on this list. That's why I had to leave him off of there. Of course, he's in the Big 10. He's actually ranked number 4 at his weight class in the Big 10 right now by Flow Wrestling. All these rankings are by Flow Wrestling. The next honorable mention I have is Gavin Hoffman, who's a 184-pounder at Ohio State last year. He was 25-3. Coming up next is Trent Hiley at NC State, a 184-pounder. He's 24-2 last season. Of course, he's the brother of Hayden Hiley, who's also at NC State. And then we have Michael Beard at Penn State, who is a 184-pounder, 12-0 last season, undefeated. Now, he didn't really have any major wins over ranked guys, and I think that's where, a couple of these honorable mention guys kind of just missed the list, is because they didn't have wins over ranked guys, although they had plenty of wins. He's actually ranked number 7 in the Big Ten, Michael Beard, but you got to look at, Shakur. You have him there. You don't really know what exactly is going to happen between Shakur Rashid and Michael Beard, who makes that lineup at Penn State this year. And the last honorable mention I have is Travis Whitlake, who's at Oklahoma State, a 174-pounder, 16-2 last year. He's 2 good wins at Reno, and he was actually originally going to Penn State, but he's at number 7 in the Big 12. Now let's get into the list. These aren't necessarily in any particular order. This isn't like this is the number 1 guy you need to watch, but these are 7 guys that you need to know. The first guy on the list, Sammy Sasso. Sammy Sasso is an Ohio State wrestler coming in as a redshirt freshman. Of course, all these guys are redshirts. Ohio State wrestler. He's number 1 at 149 pounds right now in the Big Ten. I don't know how he'll hold up against the other guys once those rankings are out, but right now he's number 1 in the Big Ten at 149 pounds. He was 19-2 in his redshirt season with wins over Alec Pantelio and Pat Lugo. He actually took 3rd at Midlands, and he's looking to make an impact. Of course, he's a PA guy. Only losses are to Ja'Cory Teamer and Micah Jordan, who, of course, is an Ohio State guy. So really, his only guy he's got to look out for is Ja'Cory Teamer. Number 2 on this list that I have is David Carr. David Carr of Iowa State is actually number 4 in the Big 12 at 157 pounds. I've watched this guy wrestle. He looks like he's going to do really well. He was 23-1 last year with a win over Brayton Lee, who at the UNI Open. He didn't wrestle a bunch of tournaments like Midlands or anything, but he did wrestle a couple of Opens, which, really is going to help him out in this upcoming year at ISU. Number 3, guy I mentioned a couple times already, is Ja'Cory Teamer at Arizona State. He is a redshirt freshman. He's number 1 at 157 pounds in the Pac-12. So he's number 1 in the Pac-12. That's why he's looking very strong on this list. He was 10-2 in his redshirt year with a win over Justin McCoy of Virginia, Brayton Lee of Midlands, and actually he's the guy who beat Sammy Sasso at Midlands. He was 5th at Midlands, actually ended up placing below Sasso, and he actually took Matt Kolodzic from Princeton into sudden victory. Ended up losing it, but he did take it into sudden victory, which I find quite impressive, and I'm excited to see what he does this year. The other guy, number 4 on this list, big name guy, mostly because he's a big guy, and that's Anthony Cassiope of Iowa. I've heard chatter all over the internet, all over from people about Cassiope and what he may accomplish this season at 285 pounds. Right now, he's number 7 in the Big Ten, and there's a lot of competition in the Big Ten this year. You have Gable Steveson. You have, of course, Anthony Cassaro, returning national champ. It's not going to be easy for him, but if he can beat one of those guys, you're darn right he's in the hunt for a national title. He was 20-2 last year with a win over AJ Nevels of Fresno State, and he placed 7th at Midlands. Now, at this point, I just wanted to let you guys know, don't forget to subscribe if you're getting a lot of enjoyment out of this wrestling content, if you're just excited to see what this upcoming wrestling season has in store, because I'll be talking all about wrestling news on this channel throughout the wrestling season. Now let's continue on this list with number 5, Tanner Sloan of South Dakota. South Dakota State, number 3 right now in the Big 12 at 197 pounds. This is a guy who kind of slipped under my radar, somebody who I kind of found, didn't know a lot about, but Tanner Sloan was 24-2 last year with wins over an All-American in Josh Hokett of Fresno State, Jacob Warner of Iowa, and he actually was 2nd at Midlands. So, he's somebody to watch next year from South Dakota State. South Dakota State's been putting out some impressive wrestlers recently, and I can't wait to see what Sloan does. Number 6 on this list is from Stanford, and that is Real Woods. Woods is number 1 in the Pac-12 at 141 pounds. Currently, he's 22-1 last year. Now, he only wrestled one ranked opponent last year, but he did lose, and that ranked opponent was Nick Lee. He lost 6-3, but it was a close match. But considering his record, considering he's ranked number 1 in the Pac-12, I'm excited to see what he does next season. And number 7 on this list, the 7th guy I'm most excited to see this upcoming season is Jacob Camacho of NC State. Now, NC State, of course, have been putting out some impressive wrestlers. I already mentioned Trent Hidley, who is an honorable mention on this list. You have Hayden Hidley, and now you have Jacob Camacho, who's number 3 at 125 pounds right now in the ACC. He was 26-2 last year with a win over Joey Melendez of UNC. And I'm very excited to see what he does this upcoming season. Please let me know in the comments below, who are you most excited to see as an incoming redshirt freshman, and who is going to make the most noise? Now, on to our main topic of the day, and that's we're going to talk all about Fresno State. Fresno State lineup, how they did last year, and what they're going to accomplish this season and beyond that. So, the first thing I want to say is Fresno State is looking to dominate. They are. This is their third official season as a program under Coach Troy Steiner, and they've already had one All-American last year, and Josh Hokett, of course, at 197 pounds, who is back, but I'll get to him in just a bit. So, I want to let you know, we're talking about Fresno State this week. Who do you want to see in next week's lineup, and who are you excited, who are you excited as a team to see? Who do you want to see next? I'm doing all the wrestling lineups for the upcoming season. Now, as I said, third season for Fresno State. They were 9-8 last year as a program. Their best wins over number 11 Wyoming and number 23 Utah Valley. Now, of course, yeah, they did have some losses, and they had some, holes in the lineup where they needed to fill. They had 2 qualifiers in year 1, actually, as a program. And last year, they had 5 qualifiers and the first All-American, as I mentioned. They finished top 30 as a team, which is pretty impressive. They're not in that top echelon yet, and nobody would expect them to be in the top echelon for their third year as a program, but they are competitive. They are very, very competitive. Now, their recruiting class was very impressive for the 2019 recruiting class. Number 8 ranked by Flow Wrestling, number 13 ranked by Intermat. They have 4 out of the top 100 recruits, and this upcoming season, they got a tough schedule. They'll be wrestling Wisconsin, Rutgers, Cliff Keen, Las Vegas. They'll be wrestling at Reno, Virginia Duels. They have Iowa State. They have CSU Bakersfield, Illinois, and Oklahoma. So let's get into the lineup. At 125 pounds, 2 guys here. One is a returner in Robert Garcia the fourth, who is last year's main starter, although the other guy at 125 pounds wrestled a couple of matches in Jeremy Trin. Now, Garcia was 6-14 last year. Right now, he's number 9 at 125 pounds. And of course, at number 1 at 125 pounds at this weight is Nick Piccinini. So that's going to be a tough battle for Garcia. But the other guy, Jeremy Trin, he wrestled some last year. Like I said, he was 8-11 last season. But he did have a win over Milhoff of Arizona State, which I found pretty darn impressive. But I have to give this spot again to Robert Garcia. Hopefully he's looking to make a little bit more noise at the conference tournament and go on to, qualify for nationals and score a couple points for the team. So that's why I have Garcia in the lineup at 125. At 133, 3 guys here. Isaiah Perez was one guy. He's a junior. I was not able to find much information about him. I actually don't have much info on him at 133 pounds. Now, there is another Isaiah Perez who's at a different weight for Fresno State, which I found pretty weird. But the other guy here is Gary Joint, who's last year's starter. He's a sophomore, and he was 18-15. He won a match at NCAA's, of course, scoring a couple of points, which is big. He's 5th at Big 12s and he wrestled throughout the season. Dayton Fix, he wrestled Mickey Philippi, Austin Gomez, and right now he's number 7 at 133 pounds. The other guy you have here is Kyle Parko, who's a true freshman. I don't see him, making the lineup just because, he's coming in his freshman year. He's probably going to redshirt. So that's why I have to give this spot to Gary Joint. Hopefully he can, win a couple more matches at Nationals this upcoming year. 141. 4 guys here. Kyle Parko, you could see him jumping up, so I'll throw his name in there first. The other guy, Chris DeLoza, who's last year's starter. DeLoza is a junior. He was 12-13 last year. He did not place at Big 12, and he had no major ranked wins. So he's one guy that needs to step it up for Fresno State if they're looking to become a dominant team and a dominant force over the upcoming years. He's number 7 at 141 right now. The other two guys at 141 are Lawrence Sains, who's a redshirt freshman from California. He's a top-ranked recruit at 132 pounds. He's 9-5 at Wrestling Opens last year. The other guy is Durbin Lauren, who's 4-1 in a transfer from Utah Valley. The one thing I'll say about Fresno State is you see a lot of transfers. Of course, because they're a third-year program, the guys who are wrestling here, well, they may have wrestled at different schools in the past and, were able to transfer in. So I'll mention a couple of those guys who did transfer in. Durbin Lauren was one of those guys. He's a junior this year. The guy who I have making the lineup is DeLoza. I see him starting yet again for Fresno State. At 149, Christian Olivas. Olivas was 6 in Big 12s this year. He was 21-13 overall. Unfortunately, he was 0-2 at Nationals, so didn't put any points on the board for Fresno State. But his best win was over Josh Maruka of Arizona State, which I find to be a very impressive win. And if he can pull off wins like that again, I can see him doing really well. It's also great that he's number 4 at 149 pounds right now. Of course, ahead of him, you have Max Thompson, Jarrett Dagan, and Caden Gefeller. He's going to have to beat one of those top-ranked guys if he wants to make a name for himself and do well for Fresno State. The other guy here is a true freshman, and that's Jace Luchow from Selma, California. He's number 52 overall recruit in the class of 2019. He's number 7 in his weight class at 152 pounds in high school. He plays second at Ironman. It was an OW at Fargo this past year. So Jace, I don't think he's going to start this year just because he's a true freshman. I see him probably redshirting, and that's why I have to give this spot at 149 to Olivas. At 157, you could see Jace jumping up. It's one guy you could see. Another true freshman that's there is Matt Olgan. He's from Buchanan, California. Again, you see a lot of these guys coming from California going to Fresno State. There's really no wonder why. That's kind of what happens. He was the number 12 overall recruit in the class of 2019. So that's a heck of a grab for Fresno State. He was number 3 at 160 pounds overall in high school, and he's a 2-time state champion in California. The other guy you have here is Greg Gaxula, who's 2-1 last year, wrestled California Open, and then Jacob Wright, who was last year's starter. He's 5th in the Big 12 last year. He was 28-11, so putting up a bunch of wins. You see Fresno State has a massive schedule. Being able to wrestle that many matches in 1 year is pretty darn impressive. He did not qualify for Nationals, unfortunately, but he did beat last year's starter in Isaiah Hokett at 165. His best win was over Larry Early, if you don't want to count that Hokett win. Best win was over Larry Early of Old Dominion. He actually placed 3rd at Reno, and right now he's number 5 at 157 pounds, and that's why Jacob Wright is probably going to get the starting spot yet again. Now, 165, Brandon Martino was last year's not actually a starter. The starter last year was Isaiah Hokett, related, of course, to Josh Hokett at 197 pounds. Isaiah Hokett right now he's unlisted on Fresno State's roster, although he should be a redshirt senior. Right now, Hokett is actually ranked at 165 pounds, number 9 in the Big 12 by Flow Wrestling. It's not. I don't have confirmation whether he's actually wrestling this upcoming season or whether he's on the roster or not. So because I couldn't find much information, I have to kind of leave him out of it. They also have Adam Kemp, a redshirt freshman, 4-4 last year, won the California Open. And then Martino, as I said, was 4-7 last year. He had a win at Midlands. Unless Hokett is actually in the lineup, I have to say Martino is probably the starter at 165. At 174, three guys here. Ricky Padilla is a senior. He was actually his first season was last year for Fresno State. Before that, he wrestled for Air Force. Josh Ramirez last year had a close match with Brandon Womack. Ramirez is a sophomore. Womack, you may know from Cornell. Ramirez is another guy, is a transfer. He's from West Virginia. Now he's at Fresno State. And then the third guy, who was last year's starter, is Dominic Kincaid, who is a senior. He was 12-11 last year with 2 wins at the Big 12 tournament. He's originally wrestled at Cal Baptist, so this is a weight where all 3 guys are transfers coming into Fresno State. And he was 5th at Reno last year. In number 9 at 174 pounds. That's where he's currently ranked, and that's why Dominic Kincaid is actually going to be the starter at 174 pounds, in my opinion. At 184, 3 guys here, 1 returning starter, and that is Jackson Heimauer, 23-13 last year, 5th in the Big 12. He was 0-2 at Nationals. And that's a theme I've kind of noticed with Fresno State is they have a lot of guys who have qualified. A lot of went 0-2. They have to pick up a couple more wins if they want to put some points on the board and get closer to that bottom 20, around that 20, 21, 22 range, and maybe even crack into the teens. But they got to get some points on the board. They can't be sending guys there going 0-2. Of course, a lot of these guys, it's their first year at Nationals as a program, not just as individual wrestlers, but as a program. So that's a lot of pressure on these guys. Now, Heimauer had 2 wins at Midlands, 3 wins at Cliff Key in Las Vegas. I think he's going to do really well this upcoming year as a sophomore, and that's why he's probably going to start. But the other 2 guys you have, Christian Rodriguez, true freshman, and then Angel Solis, who's a junior. He had some wins at Reno last year, but I have to give the spot to Heimauer. At 197, very loaded weight, but one main guy is probably going to be the starter. Now, I'll go through a couple of these other guys who are there. First, Owen Pence, a freshman. You have Isaiah Perez, who I mentioned earlier. There's another Isaiah Perez on the team, another guy with the same name, which is kind of strange. But he was 7-4 last year, wrestled a couple opens, and he actually lost to Josh Hokett at Reno. You have Danny Salas, who's a junior, 8-9 last year. He had a couple wins at opens, which is good for him. And Ryan Reyes, who's a true freshman coming in from Gilroy, California, number 54 overall recruit in the class of 2019, number 6 at 195 pounds in high school. And now he actually placed at Reno last year. And then you have Josh Hokett, who was the starter last year and Fresno State's first All-American. In it was their second year as a program, which is darn impressive. Hokett, of course, is also on the football team at Fresno State, which is absolutely incredible. He was 5th. Right now he's 5th at 197 pounds, and he took 5th last year at Nationals. So only right that's kind of where he is. I think he's going to do really well this upcoming season. Look for Hokett to All-American again and really put Fresno State on the map. I think he already did put them on the map this past year, but really look for their recruiting class to do really well. Hokett is going to be the starter at 197, unless there's been some talk that he jumps up to 285. And if that's the case, we could see if he's actually even going to start. I don't know what he's weighing in at right now as a heavyweight, as a football player. Of course, he's probably put on some weight, but there's been some talk that he goes heavyweight. Now, the other guy there at heavyweight is Randy Gonzalez, a sophomore, and the starter last year was AJ Nevels, who was 2nd in the Big Ten last year, 24-9. He went 0-2 at Nationals, which is unfortunate for Fresno State because I believe that AJ probably could have made a decent run, at least become an All-American, at least win a couple of matches to become an All-American. He was 2nd in the Big 12, as I said. He lost to Derek White of Oklahoma State. Right now he's number 3 at 285 pounds behind Tate Orndorff and Brian Andrews. AJ Neville's versus Josh Hokett would be a pretty interesting match. I would imagine that Neville's has some weight on him, so I kind of hope that Hokett is wrestling 197, and I'm going to put AJ Neville's at 285. Now make sure that if you like this lineup, that you're checking out the other lineup previews on the channel. Arizona State, Iowa, Rutgers, they're all here on the channel, so make sure you check them all out. The other lineup previews, while we're talking about lineups, lineup previews are awesome to go through, but while we're talking about lineups, what's going on with Cornell? I mean, Flow Wrestling put out this article last week talking about all the guys taking Olympic red shirts this upcoming season. And I couldn't help but notice, much like many other wrestling fans like you, what the heck's going on with Cornell? Half of their guys, almost half of their guys, are taking an Olympic redshirt year. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, There's nothing wrong with taking an Olympic redshirt year, but it just kind of took me by surprise how many of Cornell's guys are going to take that Olympic redshirt year. Now, the 4 redshirts that are confirmed by Flow Wrestling, first at 125 pounds, you got Vito Arujá, who was 4th at Nationals last year. So he's probably going to, look at All-American this year, but no, he's taking that Olympic red shirt. The other guy, of course, is Yanni Diakomahalis at 141 pounds, 2-time reigning national champion. Andrew Berriesa at 165 pounds is a sophomore. It was 16-11 last season, taking that Olympic red shirt. And then Max Dean, who was 2nd last year at nationals, 184 pounds. They're losing 3 All-Americans and 2 national finalists. That's a big loss. I mean, there's no way to go around that. It's a big loss this year. Now, Cornell fans, don't lose hope, okay? Don't lose hope because you still got some guys returning. In the upcoming season that you guys are going to have, I think you're going to blow some people's minds. I'm just being honest with you. I think Cornell is going to show up big at nationals, not this year, but in upcoming seasons. Now, the craziest part for me, too, is there are only 2 guys who are returners last year who could make the lineup. And I'm talking about guys who started last year, wrestled conferences and nationals. 2 guys. Those guys are Chaz Tucker at 133 and Adam Santoro at 157. Of course, Cornell's graduating Brandon Womack, Ben Honas, and Jeremy Sweeney at heavyweight. Now, there's still many guys who wrestled for Cornell, weren't able to crack that lineup, but you got Hunter Richards at 149, Freddie Stroker at 157, Ben Darmstadt at 197, who is an All-American, and Brendan Furman at 285. Now, the reason that I said that Cornell is going to blow some minds, all those guys I just mentioned are perfectly capable of doing well at the national tournament, becoming All-Americans, and we've seen that the coaches at Cornell are able to coach the wrestlers to the national finals. Max Dean kind of came out of nowhere this year, and I can't wait to see what he does in the future. You never know what some of these guys have in store, but what excites me the most is probably the recruiting class. Cornell was 7th, had 7 out of the top 100 recruits in the class of 2019. So now that all these guys are Olympic redshirting and they get to come back even better in the future with all these guys, they're going to be jam-packed. Now, although you may see a new Cornell wrestling lineup this year that you've never seen before, I can't wait to see what Cornell has in the future. And the other main topic of the day that I wanted to talk about is there was a creepy man who was trying to hit on a high school girl, and a wrestler pretty much saved her life. So the story comes from, I originally found this story on Internet. You make sure to check out that article. All the articles all the time are linked in the description below. Originally from Internet, but came from Local 12 News in Kentucky. Now there's a man, let me get into the story, what it was all about. There's a man named Benjamin Margitza. He flew from Las Vegas to Kentucky to get with a high school girl who he had been pretty much stalking, talking to on social media. I don't know the extent of their talks, but they've been talking on social media. I'm just going to call him the creep because that's what he is. The creep gets blocked by this girl, this high school girl, gets blocked by her. She says, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't know what the situation was. I don't want to deal with this anymore. This is gross. She, maybe she realized that this guy's a stalker. There's nothing good about him. This creep decides to fly from Las Vegas to Kentucky to meet her at high school. He gets a hotel, and then he drives up to the high school, tells her that he wants to, have relations with her. He wants to get with her, wants to bring her back to the hotel room and get with her. Mind you, that this is in front of a high school which has plenty of cameras. So this guy's not only a creep, but a complete idiot. And then a wrestler steps in. A wrestler by the name of Cody Harden steps in and confronts her. And he confronts him and says that he needs to leave her alone. He needs to get out of here. In an interview with the news, Harden said that he just told this guy he needs to leave, and the creep kept asking him, why do I need to leave? Why do I need to leave? Who are you? He says, you need to get out of here before something. You need to just get out of here. I'm telling you, or else. And the creep left in an Uber, ended up driving down the highway. Of course, these two called the cops, and he was arrested, placed in jail because of his, creepy attitude, stalking. He actually even had a backpack full with $6,000 and rose petals. Like, it just absolutely disgusts me. The main thing why I wanted to bring this up is because, again, although Cody Harden is just a high school wrestler, probably doesn't have cauliflower yet. This is why you don't mess with guys who have cauliflower ear. This is why you don't mess with wrestlers. And good for Harden for sticking up for this innocent girl, for this girl who, I don't know her personally, but probably couldn't have stuck up for herself and handled this older man, this older creep. And Harden stepped in and saved her life. Congrats. Good job to Harden for doing that. You really have all my support. And, if you guys ever see anything like this going on, feel free to, step in and stop this. It's sick that it's happening. It's sick that there are people like this in this world. And I don't want to see this ever happen again. And this is just, another inspirational wrestling story that I want to, keep seeing more of. Harden, of course, is a junior on the wrestling team in Kentucky. And make sure that, there are other inspirational wrestling stories out there. So make sure you check them all out. And good job to Harden. And guys, that's going to do it for this week's Fanco Wrestling Show. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, make sure you are following on Instagram. But the other thing I want to say is I've already told some of you that in the live stream last week, but FancoWrestling.com is a newly launched website that I created, did myself, FancoWrestling.com. You can find all the videos as well as resources for wrestlers, and that's where you are able to submit questions for the Fanco Wrestling Show that I will try to answer in an upcoming video. Make sure you go to that contact page, submit your own questions. I want to see what you have to say. And without further ado, I'm just going to say I'll see you guys next time on the next Fanco Wrestling Show.